On today's episode of the Locked On Fantasy Hockey Podcast, it is time to take a deep look at the top news in the NHL. Auston Matthews pops a 60-piece. Conor McDavid might run away with another Art Ross here in the final week. We're talking about it all, and a wild finish to a Nashville game that could cost them their number one goalie headed into the playoffs. There is a lot to talk about, plus a 9-game big-time betting and DFS board. So let's get this money, baby. Let's ride.
You're Locked On Fantasy Hockey, your daily podcast on fantasy hockey. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome back inside the lab, everybody. It is your boy, Big Flip Livingstone, aside my esteemed and distinguished co-host, the Puckline King, the DFS Guru, Mr. Steel Roden. We are here today for episode number 64, the reboot of this show, and thank you for making us your very first listen every single day, tapping into the picks, tapping into the targets, and all the breakdowns you need to stack a little bit of loot every single day. Monday to Friday, baby, you know where to find us, and thank you for showing us that love. On today's episode, Steele and I will be recapping a little bit of a wild night in the NHL, big night for Conor McDavid, a really big night for Auston Matthews, and potentially a costly night for the Nashville Predators, and a really wild finish to that game, Steele. I'm always interested to hear what you have to say, but lots to talk about on today's show. And you know we'll be paying those bills, baby. 9-game DFS and big-time betting board for Thursday night. I'm all kinds of riled up. There might be another big flip, triple dip in store for tonight. Not many action left in the season, so you know I got some picks. Stay tuned for all of that. Steele, my friend, my co-host. Big night in the NHL. I'm excited to talk about it. I don't know where you want to take this conversation because there's lots of great places to go. So fire away, my friend. I'm excited to be here as always.
I think we have to start with Connor McDavid. I think the Art Ross trophy is locked up. He's 7 points ahead of Jonathan Huberdeau, who's at 115. There's still 2 games remaining in the season. So I seriously doubt that Huberdeau is able to catch up to McDavid, who still has 2 games left in the season. He could still get up to 126, 127 points if he puts up 3 points in the last 2 games each. So, which we know is possible.
Very possible.
I think it's locked up for Connor McDavid. It's absolutely absurd that he's at 122 points right now, career high. Look, this is going to be his 4th time winning the Art Ross Trophy in 6 years. The only 2 other players, Nikita Kucherov and Leon Draisaitl. So the fact that he's able to accomplish this 4 times in 6 years, absolutely ridiculous. Top 3 fantasy player, and he's a top 2 player because I still have him behind Auston Matthews.
Hey, and that is a juicy conversation that I saw you taking some heat on Twitter for, but I like that you're sticking to your guns and saying Auston Matthews is the best player on the planet. It's definitely an intriguing conversation. I'm going to talk about a side of things here, Steele, that I think not a lot of people have looked at, and I've said it before. But if Connor McDavid doesn't go pointless in as many games as he has this year, which is very un-Connor McDavid-like, right? He's always at least chipping in with 1 or 2. He's been having these explosive games this year, but I believe he's been held off the score sheet completely in at least 9 or 10 games, if not a couple more. Imagine he even has points in half of those games. He has an even more of a crooked number and an even more impressive season overall. And what's going to happen once again, do you think, my friend, in the first round? These Edmonton Oilers are going to find a way to spoil a really special season from Draisaitl as well, because we were talking about it off air. Man, does that defensive back 6 not look good? The Art Ross is great for McDavid, but he's going to have to do something special in the first round. But maybe he can do it. If anyone can, it's him.
It is him. And to talk about their defense, even if Darnell Nurse is able to get back into the lineup before game 1, they just, even with him in the lineup and on the top D pairing, they still look absolutely awful. Yes. But against the LA Kings, for them, the fact not having Drew Doughty, I think now kind of matches up a little bit more evenly. But again, they're very bad on defense.
Very bad on defense. And, we're talking about defense. I want to actually talk about goaltending now, because there was, a really crazy finish the other night to that Predators game that might cost so the Predators clinch against, I believe with that point, they clinched a playoff spot.
Yes.
But they lose Juuse Saros, that is awful news because I believe they had to put David Riddick in the cage last night to replace him.
Yeah.
If that's the option for the Nashville Predators, I've talked to them up a lot about being a pesky team in the first round. That might go all out the window if it's David Riddick that they have to lean on still. And I don't know if you saw the highlights of that game, but that was a crazy finish. And the Flames better figure it out as well. Sidebar, because they almost blew it as well. There's all kinds of exciting storylines to watch right now in the NHL.
Yeah, playoff atmosphere type of game. I watched the highlights. Matt Duchene was in the mix a lot of the night. Got absolutely obliterated by Milan Lucic along the boards. Got into a little bit of a disagreement with Matthew Tkachuk before one of the faceoffs in the second period or late in the first period, I believe. So this is going to be a very chippy series. But to go back to Juuse Saros and this injury, if he is not able, I know it says day-to-day right now, it's a lower body injury. Hopefully it's not a hamstring or a groin situation, because that's going to be worse, especially for a goaltender. If he's not able to go for game one, the Nashville Predators have zero chance of winning that series. If he's not ready to go game one, I think the Flames take it in 5. If he is in this series, I think they push it to 6, maybe 7. But as of right now, I've got the Flames in 5. I know they don't get past the first round a lot, but the way they've played this season, Jakob Markstrom is that type of dude for the Flames. And again, if Nashville doesn't have Juuse Saros in net for game one, it's going to be a real quick series.
You know I love talking up the Nashville Predators, and I'm going to stand by them, but I 100% agree. Without Juuse Saros, that changes things, and I know his record might not sparkle as much as others this year. He's been great. He's a top 10 goalie this year, in my opinion. I believe the fantasy numbers will probably back me up there because he has been pretty good. But David Riddick is not doing it for me. Not against a Calgary Flames team that, made their move to add Toffoli ahead of the deadline, really filled out that roster. That's a good offensive lineup. And I'm sorry, I'm not seeing the David Riddick Calgary Flame revenge angle thing here. I'm agreeing with you. I could see even a sweep because if Calgary gets their mojo going, and we've seen that offensive units click up top, Johnny Gaudreau, Elias Lindholm, Matthew Tkachuk, they are going to have a field day on David Riddick. Speaking of a goal field day, I'm going to leave this one right over to you, my friend. Number 34, Pop's number 60 piece. Special player to watch, especially when he has that puck on his stick.
A special night for Auston Matthews, the Leafs organization, and Toronto fans all around just to see this. The first player in Maple Leafs history to get to 60 goals. The first time we've seen this since Steven Stamkos back in 2011. So the fact that he was able to accomplish this before the regular season ended because of those 5 games that he missed with the injuries and the suspensions, is whatever it was. I had a feeling he was going to get both in this game, and he was absolutely just firing the puck at Nedeljkovic. I think he got robbed probably 5 times in that first period, and finally on his 6th and 7th shot, just puts it away, puts it home. The 60th goal was just absolutely amazing to see. Pulls it off the wall, walks the blue line, just keeping it in, and then rips it top corner. I absolutely loved it. Probably one of the hardest accomplishments accomplishments in any sport, to score 60 goals in an 82 regular season, as well as the fact that he probably missed 8 or 9 games so far. And the fact that he was able to score, what was it? I think he scored 44 goals, even strength, which is, again, one of the hardest things to do in hockey. Super impressive season. I think he's at 105, 106 points right now. Incredible star, best player in the league.
I've seen a lot of TV people start to turn the conversation on who they think is the Hart winner. It's interesting, though, isn't it? Because when you and I broke down those odds even 6 weeks ago, it seemed to be a couple of clear-cut winners. Now, with McDavid coming on, Auston Matthews coming on, Shesterkin playing well, that Hart Trophy is going to be an interesting one. And I still think Auston Matthews has an extremely good shot and deserving of it, because aside from also the goals, he has really come along in his all-around game, playing 2 ways, playing responsibly defensively. He is a hard out. He strips the puck off of the best players in the NHL with ease. That's clear. And I will say this about Matthews, Steele, because it's true. He needs to do this in a week's time. He needs to be that confident with the puck, and look how he played last night. I know it's the Detroit Red Wings, but he knows he can do that against any team in the NHL, and that includes the Tampa Bay Lightning. And if he doesn't do that, it might be a quick series against those Lightning, because we talked all about that. We don't need to go there, but I'm glad you showed that love to a historical night for a team that's obviously, clearly, near and dear to our heart. What's also near and dear to our heart, it's Shady Rays. Shady Rays is an independent sunglasses company that gives you the features of a $200 sunglasses pair for a fraction of the price. I have mine on order, and they are sexy. I'll tell you that. This means polarized lenses, well-constructed, durable frames, and premium high-end finishes. You know I love me some high-end finish. Give them a try. If you don't love them, you pay nothing. It's as simple as that. Plus, 10 meals are donated to fight hunger in America when you shop with Shady Rays. And exclusively for our listeners, head to shadyrays.com and use code LOCKEDON to get 50% off 2 or more pairs of polarized sunglasses. That's 50% steal. And that's code LOCKEDON for the best deal of the season. 50% off 2 or more pairs of Shady Rays sunglasses, backed by over 150,000 verified 5-star reviews.
Thank you for making the Locked On Fantasy Hockey Podcast your first listen every day. For your next listen, you have to check out the Locked On Now podcast, nightly recaps of every NHL game with analysis from our local experts. You don't want to miss out on all the highlights. It's free and available wherever you get your podcast, just like this podcast right here. So if you haven't yet, hit the subscribe, hit the follow button. Flip and I appreciate all the love and support out there. So thank you so much for tuning in for today's episode with Flip and I. You said it yourself off the top, 9 games on the schedule for Thursday night. The first game for me, again, was very, very obvious. I'm going straight to the Edmonton Oilers versus San Jose Sharks game.
Yes, Steele.
Right back to Conor McDavid, baby. He's on a 4-game point streak. He's got 12 points in those 4 games, which is absolutely ridiculous. He continues to just rack up the assists, 2, 3 every single night. The odd time he'll throw in a goal in there for a 4-point night too. So he's absolutely ridiculous. I'm also going to throw Evander Kane in there because he'll be a little bit cheaper than Leon Draisaitl. And Kane is on a 6-game point streak right now too. He's got 10 points in those 6 games. And then you and I, we were talking about the defense for the Oilers. Nothing special at all for them. But I do like Evan Bouchard on the back end. He's been great in the last couple of games. 4 points in his last 4 games as well. Again, another cheap option that can be on the blue line. So you can save a little bit of money for the next matchup I'm looking at.
2 things super quick. Offensively, definitely have a look at Edmonton Oilers and DFS. But overall, just quality and like picking winners of the game, that's where I put the full stop on that defensive unit. Hey, but for cheap DFS options, a lot of those guys chip in with apples. Ceci, Barry, you mentioned Bouchard. So there's some offensive output there for sure that can't be denied. And the second thing I want to mention quick before we move on is how good has Evander Kane been? We talked about Evander Kane on, I believe, the second episode of us doing this together. And it was really, we don't know what he's going to do. It's a wild card pick. And he's a big reason that I believe the Edmonton Oilers still find themselves in there, because aside from those 2 top guns, there's really not a lot going on in Edmonton, and still not. So I think he's going to be counted on hugely, and I expect him to continue to stay hot over these next couple of games. Where else are you looking, my friend?
Well, the second matchup I'm looking at is the Carolina Hurricanes versus the New Jersey Devils, and this is another a game where I'm kind of not going for these top guys right away. I'm looking towards that second line of the Carolina Hurricanes, who I can get for a little cheaper against, a bottom tier team in the league and can potentially put up some points. Vincent Trocheck, he's definitely going to be a cheap option. He's only got 2 points, I believe, in his last 7 games. So he hasn't been great offensively, but against this Devils team that is hurting with injuries that just haven't been great this season, another cheap option for your DFS selections. He's also playing with Teuvo Teravainen, who's been bumped down to the second line. He's got 4 points in his last 4 games. And then I'm throwing Tony DeAngelo on the back end as well, another guy who has really improved his game this season, and who just really needed a fresh start after all that controversy with the New York Rangers last couple of years ago. He's been absolutely great for the Hurricanes on the back end, kind of replacing Dougie Hamilton. It's hard to replace a guy like Dougie Hamilton, but he's done he's done a fairly good job at that. So I'm going with those 3 players from that matchup as well.
Yeah, and look, I also love me a little Martin Nikash action. He's been decent over the last little while. If you're looking for some cheap options, you could throw him in there. And speaking of cheap options, Steele, and I think I've probably, put my stake in the ground, if you will, on where I think this Ottawa Senators team is headed. But if you haven't filled out your roster there, I like this spot at home for the Senators. I'm not going to be betting on them, but this might be a little bit of a look ahead game for the Florida Panthers. Ottawa is a little bit of a letdown city in general, tough building to play in. And this just seems like a bit of a womp-womp situation for them. Also, Drake
Yeah.
Batherson, red hot. Red hot. So look to those top guys on the Ottawa Senators. I think you could probably still get those guys at a decent price, but they're clicking. You know, I love me some Tim Stutzla action as well. Brady Tkachuk, if you haven't blown your budget, I think Ottawa at home. I'm not betting on them, but I think DFS-wise, I think there's going to be some goals from the Ottawa Senators tonight.
All right. I like that you're highlighting some of those lower tier teams as well. Like the Ottawa Senators, some guys like Drake Batherson, Josh Norris, who we've talked a lot about this season. Yeah. And if any of those three matchups that Flip and I just mentioned, aren't sticking out to you, the other matchup that I'm looking at for my goalie selections, as well as some of the filler options for my lower tier players, I'm looking to that Calgary Flames versus Minnesota Wild. Definitely for my goalie selections, whether it's Cam Talbot or Jacob Markstrom, but I'm also looking at the bottom six forwards on each of those teams. Those are some of the guys you're going to get for very cheap and have been really, really great down the last 2 weeks. So especially on the Calgary Flames team, Dylan Dube, Andrew Mangiapane, Michael Backlund, those are the type of guys that are chipping in and helping offensively. I would definitely look for that matchup as well.
And lastly, for me, Steele, and we've talked a lot about the Tampa Bay Lightning over the last couple of days, but you will find value in the bottom six there. Nick Paul chips in with points almost now seemingly one or two every night over the last week or so. That whole third line's looking great. So I think you could definitely target, because it's also Tampa Bay's going up against the Columbus Blue Jackets again. So you know that team's going to continue to roll. Stay tuned for big time bets coming up right around the break, but I'm throwing it back over to you, good sir.
Hey, we're going to get into it very soon, but where you should place those big-time bets is betonline.net. They are your number one source for all your betting needs and sports info. Find all the latest sports developments, including this year's NBA playoffs and the start of Major League Baseball season. That is in full effect at this point. Let's go Toronto Blue Jays. Shout out to the buds over there at the Rogers Center. Head to the website today or use your mobile device to learn more about the trends and actions at BetOnline. BetOnline, where the game starts. Thank you for making the Locked On Fantasy Hockey Podcast your first listen every day. Don't forget, we are free and available wherever you get your podcasts, which also includes YouTube. So again, if you haven't yet, hit the subscribe, hit the follow button. Flip and I appreciate all the love and support out there, and it helps us out so much. So thank you for tuning in for today's episode. Flip, big time bets right now. A lot of games Thursday night. I'm definitely going to be putting more bets on what I'm, releasing out right now for this episode. But my first pick of the night, and you said it, for the DFS selections, I'm going back to the Tampa Bay Lightning on the puck line against the Columbus Blue Jackets. Yeah. I might dial it back down to a money line just in case if Brian Elliott is in net and they want to save Vasilevsky for the playoffs. If Vasilevsky's in net, I'm going puck line. If it's Brian Elliott, I'll go money line. But that is my first pick of the night.
Yeah, man, dial that baby back, and instead of maybe hammering a big-time solo bet, sprinkle it into a nice little parlay with a couple of teams and just dial your bet back. That's okay, too. Hey, not everyone are big fish spenders. Not everyone has thousands of dollars to spend on hockey. Slap a couple of micro parlays down, keep the budget, keep the wife, keep the husband, keep the partner happy. We're not here to tell you how much to bet. We're just telling you where to bet. And if you would like, sir, I can take it away from here for all three of my picks, because it is another big flip, triple dip special. It's a big night in the NHL, but I don't care. Blinders are on, and I'm going to a team that I think I have probably, and I've said this a lot this episode, talked about a lot. The Edmonton Oilers have made me some money this year. Conor McDavid has made me some money this year. And I am going to finish the season where I started it, with these same Edmonton Oilers. Look, at home against the San Jose Sharks, first of all, San Jose has 3 wins in the last 16. They look awful. San Jose is 1-8 on the road in their last 9 as well. Bad road team. And San Jose has lost 4 of the last 5 playing in Edmonton. I wonder where I'm going to go because also, Steele, these Edmonton Oilers, I know there's been a couple of blips on the radar, but they have played great over their last 10 games. 7-3 at the right time of the year. And kudos to that bucket blue line because they have been holding it down. And Cuckoo Mike Smith, can they get it done in the playoffs? Can they get it done against John Quick? A whole other series. But this is the regular season, and they're playing great. So let me start off this triple dip by saying Oilers on the puck line is my first pick. This should be a high-scoring game. The total has gone over the number in 7 of the last 8 trips San Jose has made to Edmonton. So give me that over as well, 6.5. This could be a crazy number because I think it's another big one for Edmonton. And you know Mike Smith or Koskinen are good for at least 1 or 2. Speaking of which, Conor McDavid, I'm finishing off the triple dip where I started the year, and I have to because he's been making me some money. And I'm not going to go cheap on this one either. Give me 2 or more points for McDavid. I see another big multi-goal game, potentially multi-point game, in 22 career regular season games against the Sharks. How about a 30 piece for McDavid, 30 points, 12 goals, 18 assists. This guy is so red hot right now. 4th Art Ross coming up, Steele. I'm fired up. The Oilers need to send a message to these LA Kings that they're for real. I expect them to blow the doors off the Sharks. Big night from Evander Kane. Big night from that whole top line. And give me all that for a big flip triple dip special. I'm fired up, baby.
I love the big flip triple dips. I'm pretty sure you're maybe 100% every single time you've done a triple dip.
The last one didn't pan out as well. I think I was only 1 for 3. But other than that, it's been a solid clip.
Okay, you've been 95% for the triple dip.
I'll take that.
We're not good at numbers, but I'm just going to throw 95% out there.
Yeah.
But that's exactly where I went for my second and third picks as well.
Yes,
I am taking the Oilers on the puck line against the Sharks. You pretty much said it all, but just to add on top of that, the Oilers have won 5 of their last 6 games, and in those 5 wins, they've won by 3 or more goals. So
thank you.
They've been red hot. They're scoring a ton right now. They're winning by, like I said, 3 or more goals in those 5 wins. So I'm taking the Oilers on the puck line. And my lock of the night is the exact same as yours. Conor McDavid over 1.5 points in this matchup. He's just red hot right now. He's got 4 straight multi-point games. He's got 12 points in 4 straight. So look, I'm taking a McDavid over 1.5 points against the Sharks. That is my lock of the night.
Absolutely love it. Look, we had all the same picks the other night, and that was a bang-out perfect night as well. I'm loving that we're going on a heater headed into the playoffs. I was sending you some of those winning parlays. I'm starting to cook, and I love it because I could not be more excited for the playoffs. I don't think I've ever been as excited. So many good seasons by individual players. So many interesting storylines. So many great first-round matchups, and trust me when I say you don't want to miss any of the coverage Steele and I have rolling out next week, Monday and Tuesday. We will be breaking down every single series, giving our predictions, our bets, X factors, under the radar guys you want to have an eye on. It's time to stack this paper, people. I ain't kidding around. Steele, take us away, brother.
Hey, this is probably the most excited I've been for the postseason in a very long time. And I'm excited every single time it gets to the playoffs. So This is just one of those years that a ton of great teams, we don't know who's going to win it because every single team we kind of look at in the top 3 of the division, they could possibly win. So I'm excited. You're excited. Let's pencil in the lock of the night. My lock of the night, again, is McDavid over 1.5 points against the San Jose Sharks. Flip. Let them know what your lock of the night is.
Exact same, baby. Big night for McJesus coming up, and that is my lock of the night as well, and I'm loving it even more.
All right, so then we're both hitting because every single time that we've both chosen the same lock of the night, they have hit so far. So pencil it in, lock it in, put your money down. Maybe add a couple of parlays in there for the Edmonton Oilers. Who knows? They're red hot right now. Put your money down to make some money. Thank you so much for making the Locked On Fantasy Hockey Podcast your first listen every day. If you want more gambling advice, if Flip and I aren't cutting it out for you, make your second listen Locked On Bets, your daily one-stop shop for all your gambling needs. Locked On Bets, hosted by your boy Q, with insight from Lee Sterling. It's free and available wherever you get your podcasts, just like this podcast right here. So if you haven't yet, hit the subscribe, hit the follow button. Once you do, you'll get the latest episodes of the Locked On Fantasy Hockey Podcast as soon as they're available each and every day, Monday to Friday, 7 o'clock in the morning Eastern time. Like Flip said, a ton of content going to be coming out, especially with the playoffs starting on Monday. Let's get this bread. Let's get this paper. Thank you again for tuning in for today's episode with Flip and I. Have a great day. Good luck with all your bets out there. And we shall see you back here again tomorrow.